another comic brigade. These are our frenzy faves.
Well, thank you, Professor. Today, our frenzy fave is a Twilight Zone episode, and we're going to go to Season 2, Episode 7, Nick of Time.
Ooh, yeah. Tell us about the episode a little, Chris.
Thanks. We're going to look at Nick of Time. This was directed by Richard L. Baer. Maybe best known for, of all things, he directed almost all of the episodes of the TV show Green Acres, believe it or not. But this is not his only time that he directed The Twilight Zone. This episode is written by Richard Matheson, who coincidentally wrote Comedy of Terrors by sheer coincidence. The original air date was November 18th, 1960. Now, for our cast, we have William Shatner as Don S. Carter, Patricia Breslin as Pat Carter, Stafford Repp as the mechanic, a.k.a. Lars, Guy Wilkerson as the counterman, Walter Reed as a man, Dee Carroll as the woman. Professor, what happens in this episode?
Don and Pat are newlyweds driving to New York City, but their car breaks down in Ridgeview, Ohio, and they're told by the mechanic, who is not a police officer in Gotham City, that they have to wait in town for 4 hours for a part to come in. So they head over to a diner to eat and wait. At their table is a fortune-telling napkin dispenser with a little devil head on a spring on it, and a machine where you put in a penny and ask a question and push a lever, and a ticket with a yes or no answer comes out, more or less yes or no. So Don is anxious about a promotion that he's up for at work, and he's made a pest of himself several times calling his job to see if he's got the position. And he asked the devil napkin holder if he's going to get the promotion. And the ticket he gets says, "It has been decided in your favor." So he says, let me call one more time. And he calls work, and he finds out that the napkin dispenser is right. He got the job. So, well, that's interesting. And he starts asking the dispenser questions and gets kind of vague answers, but they all seem to fit the questions he's asking. Pat is getting anxious about her new husband's obsession. The dispenser implies that they shouldn't leave the diner until 3 p.m. And Don keeps ordering them food until 3. Oh, why don't you have something to drink? Oh, why don't you have some ice cream? Blah, blah, blah. But about 5 minutes to 3, Pat convinces them that he's being silly, and they leave. However, when they're outside, they're almost hit by a car. Uh-oh. Now Don is absolutely obsessed by the machine. They go back to the diner, and Don is getting frantic, asking questions. He asks, when will the car be done? And it implies, quote, it has already been taken care of. At which point, the mechanic comes in and says the car is ready. Don and Pat have a moment where he realizes, they talk a little bit, and she tells him, look, you can make these changes. You're letting this napkin dispenser control your life. And he kind of realizes what a dope he's been, letting his superstitions getting the better of him. We've seen him with rabbit's foot before, so he's a little superstitious anyway. And he finally agrees to leave. However, as they go out, another couple comes in and sits at the same table and starts desperately asking the dispenser questions, particularly if they're ever going to be able to leave Ridgeview. Uh-oh. I like this. I think Shatner's a little shifty in this, and I like the dawning realization on Pat that Don is obsessed, and she's kind of wondering, I think, if she's made a terrible mistake by marrying this suspicious guy that's just going to let things, take over. Really interesting episode. I really enjoyed watching this. Look, it's a Twilight Zone episode. It's a 60-year-old episode, and our storytelling. We've seen the story before, similar things to the story. But this is one of the originals, and this was, I thought, an excellent telling of this tale. What did you think about this episode, Chris?
Thanks, Prof. I'm going to backtrack on some of the trivia first. Richard Matheson wrote it, and like I said, by coincidence, he also wrote A Comedy of Terrors, which was Sven Gully's movie last night that we talked about. As you said, Professor, fans of the 60s Batman TV show will recognize Stafford Repp, who played Chief O'Hara, and he was the mechanic here. Shatner also appeared in the Twilight Zone episode Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, which coincidentally was also written by Richard Matheson. And this would be like one of two appearances. In fact, we had some duplicate appearances here. Shatner appeared in this. I think Stafford Repp appeared in a couple that I can think of. I forgot that he appeared in more than one Twilight Zone episode. And Professor, yeah, if that was Dee Carroll in this, I think this was also another episode she was in was called The Bewitching Pool. So I'm going to have to double back because I didn't recognize her at first with that. Really, really cool. I like the contrast between the husband and wife here because you can see there are little moments that both are a little bit of superstitious, and we kind of get a little bit of hints to Shatner being somewhat that when they're walking down the sidewalk and they kind of put their fingers together when they cross, bread and butter, they say that comment a little bit there. So we get little touches here, which I think were really cleverly inserted, that Shatner is a little more superstitious than his spouse. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that just by circumstance that they wind up in this place, and of all the things, I mean, you don't see the novelty of something like at a diner anymore where you got like a little napkin holder and you get this little thing called a Mystic Seer where you can put a penny in and you get a little fortune teller, and it's got a little rubber devil's head on it with the horn sticking out, and it's winking, and it's got a little grin on its face. And I think that's kind of cool. But back in the day, I mean, some diners had some type of a novelty thing with respect to it. Some of them even had tiny little miniature jukeboxes at the table at some diners. I remember that from that being a thing back then. So, if somebody looked at this episode now and they would think, well, what's up with that? It's different. But, how far away are we removed where you can even, let's say you might go into a restaurant and there's some type of little novelty thing where you pay a bill, and there's also something where you can like play an on-screen game, if you go into a restaurant. So these things aren't too terribly far-fetched with respect to that. But I like how we get little definitions with the character. Let me circle back to that again, because Shatner is a little more superstitious than the spouse. And immediately we can see him, gravitating to this. And once he finds out that one answer is correct, he's sort of like logically playing, well, if it's right on this one, then the other ones are going to follow suit on this. And it's broad enough with these answers and the questions that it rings true. And then we just follow Shatner into this descent of this obsession that he has. And the wife is just sort of all along being, hey, it's just a machine, it really can't tell this. And we get wrapped up in it. And I like how Shatner plays along with it. And he's really magnificent in his performance. And he coaxes his wife to ask some questions. And some of these things, you get this byplay between these answers and her, and she says, "You're just nothing but a dumb machine, are you?" And then the machine answers back, with respect to this, and it plays out, and you can just see her aggravation grow, whereas Shatner becomes more obsessed, and then you see her aggravation progress too. So I think it's a nice byplay between the two characters, and I thought that was really, really cleverly done. There's Shatner's lines too, just the way he delivers it and the way he looks at his wife. It's really, really telling. I like the way he delivers the line, "Don't you want something cold to drink?" When he's really stretching for the time, and you could just see her frustration coming to a slow boil. I like that we have this diner guy, who says, well, we'll get this. But there's one scene where he kind of scowls at them like, what are you still doing here, for crying out loud, And the wife kind of sheepishly smiles back at him. And I thought that was kind of cool. It's like, because momentarily they leave after that and he says, "Oh, come again." And when I was first watching this, I was wondering, here's this guy who actually works at the diner. Now, is he totally oblivious to what's happening? Because you got to think, where are they putting these pennies in this machine? And then eventually Shatner is convinced, you know what, I'm going to make my own fortune. I'm not going to be obsessed by this thing. I'm not going to let this thing own me, And so only to see another couple come in and they're just crestfallen and they just are weathered and they just are just so beaten down that they are obsessed by this thing, like wondering if they're ever going to leave Ridgeview. And it makes me wonder if like I wondered if like the diner counter guy was sort of in on this, does he really know something that there's more to this than, because I wouldn't mind if there was like a sequel to this where he had some kind of play with respect to that, but maybe he doesn't know, it depends on how you take it. But I think this could almost play out as sort of like a modern parable by like, how obsessed people are with respect to like a physical device. If it's a watch, if it's their electronic device, if it's their computer, if it's like, I can't leave now because I got to do this, whereas you're not living life because of something else, and you're letting something else trap you, be it a hobby, be it on being on the internet, being at social media. So I think this could kind of hold up, and you can kind of like rewrite this in a way to work for modern times. And I think it's a really, really cleverly done story. I think Shatner is magnificent. I think the whole cast is great with respect to that. And I like how it's executed. I think even the scene where they almost are hit by the car, that looks so real, where they cross and they don't see the other car behind it. And I think, that could credibly happen to people with respect to that, even if it was a train. There's people like, well, you see the one train come up, but you don't know there's what's on the other side of that car. You don't know what's on the other side of that train, and there's something. So yeah, it was a really, really effectively done episode. I like how Bear shot it, and I like how it was really effectively acted. I think it's a little bit underrated, and I think it's a really, really good, solid episode.
Great. Yeah, I think so too. I think I do wonder about the guy, the counter guy at the drugstore, because like he must see a lot of people come in and get worrying about things at that napkin holder. Good times.
Yeah, Professor, did you remember the things like on the counter back in the day and at the diner? Like, remember the little jukebox things? Or
yeah, I remember the little jukeboxes, and also I remember going to one where there would be like this little puzzle game where you'd put little golf tees in a triangle thing.
Oh yeah,
and try
yeah.
to
I think
jump
Cracker
them
Barrel
and
still
stuff.
has some of those too. Yeah. The old peg game. Yeah.
Yeah, the peg game, right? Stuff like that. All right, so this is one of our favorite Twilight Zone episodes.
Not just another Tom, Dick, or Dave. These are our frenzy faves.
And now it's time for our thank yous. Last week we released a Twilight Zone episode 22 and From Agnes with Love and The Island of Lost Souls and Phantasm. Agnes and Lost Souls did amazingly well, the best two trafficked videos. We've got some comments. First, when we talked about Island of Lost Souls, we heard from our friend Cat Victory. Cat Victory stated, if someone tried to turn me into a wild animal, I would tear them apart with my bare hands. Nicely done. I saw what happened.
Hands.
See? Yes. Join myself and the prof as we look at the Island of Lost Souls on Frenzy Frights, a new Professor Frenzy show production. We also heard from friend Gene Savage. The black cat was pretty horrific too. That last scene, shudder. Ooh.
Oh yeah.
We heard from at YJN75, quote, pre-code question mark?
Yeah, this was a pre-code movie. It was prior to the Hays Code, which was put in place in the 20s, but really, set in stone about 1934 or so. So this movie, Island of Lost Souls, had some topics that would have been not allowed under the Hays Code.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Prof. We heard from Mac J 1777, real horror film, greatest of the 30s in my opinion. Thank you so much, Mac J. Melanie Parker chimed in. H.G. Wells didn't like this question mark? Yeah, bummer. Indeed. Thank you so much.
That was my reaction too.
Indeed. With respect to the podcast where we cover the Twilight Zone episode From Agnes with Love, once again we heard from Cat Victory, who stated, check out this AI love story that appropriately premiered on Valentine's Day 1964. Again, with the link. Thank you so much. With myself and the prof, we'll explain why even a computer with barn doors can't provide a, quote, stable relationship.
Oh, Cat. I love it. I love it.
I do too. I don't want to laugh too hard because that's going to make me cough, but that really, really was very cleverly done. Thank you.
Yes.
We heard from Dead Already 7467, someone we know, question mark. Great episode, and Wally Cox, parenthetically underdog, was great in it. Thank you for talking about From Agnes with Love again. Thank you. We also covered the Twilight Zone episode 22. Once again, Cat Victory stated, Spock really dodged a bullet by not marrying T-Pring. Check out the creepiest ever bride that got away with the prof and myself. We heard from ELDen J7N. Me and my father agreed that this episode felt like something that could have been beyond belief, fact, or fiction. Ah, good catch there.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that's a series I do catch from time to time. So thank you so much. We appreciate the comment. We also recently covered the film Phantasm. Cat Victory chimed in. It's something new from the Prophet and myself. Check out Frenzy Frights, a new Professor Frenzy show production. Thank you, Cat Victory. We also got some nice slice and love from DSMA Collins, Stoner Santa, Kaye Modista, John Murphy, and Peanut Hafter. We also want to give a shout out and plugs to our regulars. We'll start out with the mascot of our show, Robin at Robin031. Robin, my requisite kiss. I love you. Thank you very, very much. We also want to give a shout out to our friend Two Sleeps at Two Sleeps Music. Two Sleeps puts on a concert twice a week. You can catch it on Sunday afternoons and Tuesday evenings. To find the concert, go into a search bar, type in Two Sleeps Music Twitch TV at 3:30 Eastern on Sunday afternoons, 2:30 Central. Click on the link. The show will start, and then once you're there, sign up and get involved in an interactive chat. Once you're in the chat, there will be a link posted by Kara, a.k.a. Karasaurus Rex, who does a lot of things behind the scenes, get things up and rolling. Once you click on the link, you'll get a song list of well over 200 songs that you can request. Concerts last a little over an hour or as long as all the requests get exhausted. Sometimes, though, Two Sleeps has to put a cap on it. It's a marvelous experience. Music enhances my mood. It really, really elevates me for the start of a really grueling work week. So I cannot thank Mikey, a.k.a. Two Sleeps, for doing this. You may hear some Beatles, like 8 Days a Week. You might hear some Foo Fighters, like My Hero. How about Tom Petty, like some Wildflowers? Johnny Cash? You never know. You might hear some country. You might hear some Stray Cats. You might hear some Commander Cody. It's a whole plethora of music. Again, please check it out. Also want to mention Two Sleeps does a concert on Tuesday nights. That concert is at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. There is also a very inexpensive Patreon. For $1 mere, you can get original content each month. Thank you, Two Sleeps. Randy, you're a longtime friend. You can be found at Randolanders1 on Twitter or Frumpy Sketch Artist on Blue Sky. You've got two coloring books with your amazing robotic sketches now available on Amazon. You also do a podcast called Soundtrack Alley where you look to see how music enhances a film. Please check it out. I want to give a shout out to our friend Clinton, who does a podcast called Coffee and Comics. That's where Clinton will look at a comic in about the time to take a cup of coffee. Clinton occasionally will have on a guest, ask some fascinating questions as well. Not to be outdone, Clinton does the Days of High Adventure podcast, when he has time, which looks at Sword and Sorcery comics, Fan Film Fridays, which is over on the Longbox Crusade feed, where Clinton and a guest will look at a fan film, typically on YouTube. That one is over at the Longbox Crusade feed, though. No worries, because once you're there, you're going to get a whole plethora of awesome podcasts from the Longbox Crusade gang. Don't want to forget on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Power Outer, again with John and Lane. Thank you so much. I want to give a plug to our friend Billy D, the Magazines and Monsters feed. Billy D typically will look at horror films, Bronze Age horror comics written by Bob Haney, my personal favorite, called The Brave and the Bob. And these are great deep dives with some marvelous, marvelous guests. Keep up the phenomenal output. We appreciate it, Billy D. Magazines and Monsters is the feed. And last but certainly not least, I also want to give a plug to listener emeritus, Macrox. Thank you for your continued support, my friend. If I overlooked you, my sincerest and deepest regrets, because this would really bum me out if I overlooked someone. If I did, please let me know on the socials at BTO and Bad Books. Better still, to cover all the bases, let the professor himself know at Professor Frenzy. Listeners, thank you so much for your
The Professor Frenzy Show!
Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy show. Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy show. Professor Frenzy show.